On today's show, we've got more Kawhi Leonard news. Are the Clippers in more trouble than anyone could have imagined? Plus, is it silly to count out the Boston Celtics? Jayson Tatum coming back earlier than we thought. We're going to talk about all that and so much more on today's edition of Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham, and you might know me from Locked On Cavs or Locked On NBA Game Night on Sunday. Not normally in this slot, but I'm filling in for Jake Madison today alongside John Karalis, who you might know from Locked On Celtics and is the guy that is actually supposed to be here every single time of this week. We want to say thank you to you for making this show your first listen today and every day. You can find it anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. And if you're watching on YouTube as we get started here, do us a favor. Hit the thumbs up button for us, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest from us. Of course, this show, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, because right now, new FanDuel customers can bet just $5. And if your first $5 bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today or head on over to FanDuel.com. That is FanDuel.com. John, we got more Kawhi Leonard news because the Kawhi Leonard news never seems to stop, whether it's coming from Pablo Torre in his podcast, Pablo Torre Finds Out, very aptly named, or the Boston Sports Journal. Some guy, I guess, reported some stuff about him over there a little bit ago. We just keep getting more and more information. And the latest today comes by virtue of Pablo Torre Finds Out. And the biggest news from today's episode, or Thursday's episode of that show, is that the Clippers owner, Steve Ballmer, had 3 installments of prepaid carbon credit purchases that were paid in 2022, so 2 years before the Intuit Dome, very nice building, so I've heard, even opened, which totaled $56 million. Those payments made April 1st of 2022 to June 17th, of 2022. So not a very wide date there, but it aligned pretty closely with the Kawhi Leonard deal that he signed with the company now, which we are all very familiar, no longer exists, Aspiration. And of course, Aspiration signed Kawhi Leonard to a deal that paid him $28 million, or was supposed to pay him $28 million over 4 years to do nothing. John, what is your reaction to the new news with Kawhi Leonard that came out on Thursday?
What I love about the new news is how Pablo tied it into Mark Cuban, who said, hey, if you're going to do this, you got to do it by buying more carbon offset credits. And, why didn't he do that? And then Pablo Torre goes on and is like, oh, yeah, actually, they did. That's exactly what they did. They went and they bought more carbon offsets. And then the other thing that Mark Cuban said was like, when the ship was starting to sink, you got to go and make sure that Kawhi Leonard gets paid. So that kind of goes away and you protect yourself. If you're doing this, then you just go in, you make sure they pay off Kawhi. You try to get that out of there. So when everything falls apart, they don't find that little tidbit of like, oh, wow, what's this KL2 Aspire LLC? But that's exactly what Ballmer seemed to do with another $10 million payment, right as like another investment as things were starting to fall apart. So it just looks bad, especially when one of Ballmer's biggest supporters said, hey, I don't believe he did this, because if he did, he would have done A and B and C. And then Pablo goes on and goes, oh, yeah, A, B, and C actually happened. Here's some more documentation for that. But I tell you what, Danny, the more damning thing to me is that $10 million investment from Ballmer at the end was at a valuation of about $22 a share, which was double what he paid. And there's a rule that prevents NBA owners from owning more than 5% of a company in which a player is a paid endorser. And to me, I don't know, there's no smoking gun that says this, but to me, when you pay double what you paid before, the shares weren't worth double. The company was falling apart. Why do you pay that much? Well, it seems to me that when you pay that much, you get fewer shares. And when you're putting more money into a company that's failing, you want to get fewer shares back. Why? because you're not trying to own 5% of the team. And if you did, that would raise a red flag. So all of the circumstantial evidence just makes me think like, wow, they kept doing all of the things that a rich person said you should do to try to avoid detection. And then they did one thing in a weird way that would have avoided detection. It all just screams to me that this was an elaborate cap circumvention scheme. I can't come to any other conclusion here.
I'm with you. I think the Clippers are guilty here. And the term that, and I believe you said it there, and it's the term that we've heard more frequently in the last, 3 weeks, however long this saga has been going on. But the term smoking gun, right? We don't hear that often until something like this happens. And I wonder if we're starting to get close enough to it. And the one thing from Thursday's reporting from Torrey that I look at and say, okay, maybe that is the smoking gun is, yes, the Clippers buying these carbon credit purchases in 2022. But according to Torrey, they had a $32 million purchase of carbon credits on April 4th, which also, by the way, was the same day that Kawhi Leonard signed his endorsement deal with Aspiration, that never made him do anything. He didn't do anything to earn that money. It was a no-show contract, which the former president, CEO, founder of Aspiration said was not a no-show contract, but he didn't actually ever show up and do anything. So until I see proof that he did something, I'm going to refer to it as such. And the one thing that I keep coming back to is all Kawhi Leonard needed to do was the bare minimum of endorsing. Like all he needed was send a couple of tweets, do a commercial, just like because
one thing
would still look bad. But if he actually did one thing, send a tweet, do a commercial, how much of this is we are probably not talking about this. And I don't want to talk about this in the light as, hey, NBA teams, this is how you do cap circumvention. It's not a no-show job. You just have to barely show up. Like we should expect more. But I do think had Kawhi just done the actual bare minimum of showing up and doing something, we're not talking about this.
I think that is very true. I can also say that if he didn't want to do anything, putting in as a creditor in the bankruptcy under KL2 Aspire LLC is one of the single dumbest moves. This whole thing screams of a lack of self-awareness where you could have just said, look, we don't want to do anything. What is the absolute least we can do while showing we are doing something? Take one day, take pictures of Kawhi, and here it is. We're going to show up at your office one day. You take all the photos and then just put out occasionally some things with his face on it. So then you can say, well, here's Kawhi endorsing this. And they'd be like, well, he got paid to endorse. And it's not Aspiration's fault that they, paid whatever. But when you do nothing and then you put in as the company's falling apart, you put in for the money that you're owed, just acknowledge okay, we got away with it. Putting in under the LLC name, that's probably going to raise some suspicion, because if somebody does go digging for this and they see it, that might be something. So that's sloppy. And that level of a connection, again, it piles into the evidence that points an arrow towards Ballmer and the Clippers. They don't have the documentation. They don't have the thing that says, hey, this money is for cap circumvention. Okay, that's smart. That's probably why they put out that first statement that said it's provably false.
And have not said that since, by the way. They have not retracted the it's provably false thing, but that has been, I think, noticeably omitted from everything else they've said since that day.
So this, you know what this sounds like to me? It sounds like the guy who cheated on his girlfriend, and she says, well, I got these texts, and he's like, no, that's a friend that from somewhere else. But somebody said they saw you here. Like, no, I was in a lunch meeting with some, and it's like all of these things come up and no one is saying we didn't do it. It's like, oh no, that's something else. Oh no, that's something different. And like Mark Cuban keeps coming up with like, no, these things happen here. And they're like, no, let's just cut to it. Occam's razor here. This is the simplest explanation, is probably the most accurate one. The Clippers found a way by word of mouth, blah, blah, blah. We're going to find something here. And all of these payments, the timing, the amounts, all of that stuff points to Kawhi was always looking for a way around the cap, a way to make even more money. And the Clippers found a way to do it. The Spurs didn't, the Raptors didn't, the Lakers didn't. The Clippers were like, nah, we can figure this out. That's what it seems like. And so I think that is too much. The evidence, the circumstantial evidence is too much. The league is going to have to come down on them. The league has to come down on them and say, look, we can't say that you did it, but this looks bad and you probably did it. So we're either going to take some draft picks or freeze some draft picks or apply some of these second apron penalties. I think it's very fair to say, hey, we created this new system with the second apron where we can drop your picks to the bottom of the draft. We can't take them away because we can't prove it, but you're going to pick 30th in the next 3 drafts or 4, whatever.
You have a pick.
Yeah, and you can't trade those picks. Like, we're freezing your picks. We're applying second apron penalties to you now, and that's it. So I think there's something like that can probably be applied to this situation.
I do think it gets complicated because they don't have the probably as solid proof as they would like. And I believe all of the reporting from Pablo and yourself, John. Like, I think that you guys have been spot on, and Pablo, I think, has done a great job with this. But the thing that I just keep coming back to is, if Adam Silver wants to say, well, we can't 100% positively prove that this is why that was done. Okay, fine. I don't think they need to give the Joe Smith punishment that the Timberwolves got back when that happened, which was a very, very different case. That's only brought up because that was, I guess, like the last time we had a contractual controversy quite like this, even though those things are wildly different. But any punishment that's handed down needs to be enough to where any other of the 29 other NBA teams look at it and say, no player's worth that. No player's worth that type of punishment. And for the Clippers, Kawhi has obviously not been worth it. They have not had the on-court success that they envisioned having when they signed him back in 2019. But I think every other team needs to look at it and say, you know what? There's not a player in the world, whether it's Victor Wembanyama or Giannis Antetokounmpo or Nikola Jokic, if he ever wants out of Denver. There's not a player out there that's worth these types of penalties. I don't know what that threshold is, but I think that is the threshold the league does need to reach if and when they come down with the penalty for the Clippers.
I want to throw one last thing in here.
Throw it in.
We're talking about the things that have been reported. I've had many conversations with sources inside of Aspiration. Pablo Torre has had many more. He is the absolute leader killing this story. There's stuff that I can't report. There's stuff that I've been told that's off the record. There's stuff that Pablo undoubtedly has been told that's off the record that he hasn't reported or can't confirm. But there's stuff that I know and he knows and other reporters working the story that they know that we can't put out there. But those things can be told to Adam Silver. Those things can be told to the NBA and the law firm investigating. So just because it's not out there doesn't mean that there aren't more things that can be like more piles of evidence. Nobody has the smoking gun. I'm not implying that there's a smoking gun. If I had it, I'd report it. But I can tell you that there's stuff that we all know, that we've all been told, that if this law firm comes along and it's like, yeah, as long as this doesn't get out to the media, we can tell you A, B, C, D, E, like that. There's more to this that can come out in an investigation than what we know and what we're talking about.
Well, John's going to tell me all those things during the break that you're not going to be able to hear. And then we're going to talk about Jayson Tatum and the Boston Celtics, because that's the thing other than Aspiration that John knows best. So that's straight ahead right here on Locked On NBA Game Night. But first, today's show brought to you by OpenPhone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call, it's money left on the table. That's right. Think about the last time that you had an urgent need. Maybe your air conditioner broke. Oh, brutal this time of year. Maybe you need a plumber. I can't think of anything worse than having a plumbing issue inside my home. So you know what you do? You call a service provider because you need something taken care of. Let's say they don't answer. You might leave a message, but are you waiting for that service provider to call you back? I don't think so. You're finding the next best person because they'll pick up the phone. That's exactly why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or your computer. They let you manage business calls and text from a single app, and the shared inbox features a total game changer because your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat. Plus, they've got an AI agent that handles after-hours calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so that you never miss a customer. And right now, OpenPhone offering listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. Again, that's openphone.com/LockedOnNBA, openphone.com/LockedOnNBA, LOCKEDONNBA. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Thank you again for making Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen today and every day. John, that was some wild stuff you told me during the break. I promise not to tell anybody else. Your secret is safe with me. And now we move on to the thing that you know better than aspiration, and that would be the Boston Celtics, because they're going into the season maybe not exactly knowing what their starting lineup's going to be on opening night. We know that Jayson Tatum won't be part of it. We really don't know what the Celtics are going to be this year. I think they are one of the most interesting teams in basketball, given what their roster looks like, given how good I think Jaylen Brown is and how much is going to be on his shoulders throughout the season. What's the latest in Boston as far as, should we expect Jayson Tatum to play? What should we expect this team to look like as we are now basically 10 days from media day?
So it was reported on one of the sports radio stations, 98.5, the Sports Hub. It wasn't like a big breaking report, but they talked about how the team is very happy with Tatum's rehab, how it's going. He stayed in Boston. He didn't go back home to St. Louis. He didn't go to some tropical island for an extended period of time. He did these short weekend trips and otherwise has been in the practice facility. And that's been confirmed by other players who have spoken about it. We've seen videos and pictures of, him around Boston. So the rehab is going well. And I think, look, I have been optimistic since day one that this is going to be unlike a lot of other Achilles tear rehabs for a couple of reasons. He's not only just in his physical prime, he got a surgery almost immediately by the best in the business, and they used that innovative speed bridge technique, which is known for getting NFL players back in 6 months. So, and if NBA is a little bit different, obviously, and, but I still think this notion that he's going to miss the entire season, just blanket out of hand, I don't think that that's completely accurate. He certainly might, but there is optimism that he can come back at some point during the season. And when I say come back, I mean fully cleared by every trainer, every doctor, every person involved, get everybody in there, get the Pope in there to make sure that everybody
Chicago,
is
not St. Louis. He's not going to help the Celtics. He's
got
to be a Bulls fan.
No, he's going to miss. He's got to miss at least 2 more seasons. No, but
I don't think the Bulls will be good then.
They're beyond divine intervention. But I think Tatum, I think there's a possibility that he can come back somewhere February, March. And I think that would be beneficial for him just to shake off some rust, treat it like a month and a half, 2 month long rehab, extension of the rehab to get back into NBA shape, to play, even if it's just 15 minutes, 20 minutes, just to get back into the rhythm, the flow of things. And most importantly, to get his mental kind of stability back. That's the biggest hurdle. You heard Kevin Durant talk about that feeling of your body has betrayed you and you want to get back onto the floor to kind of get past that and get back to feeling like yourself. So I think there's a chance that could happen.
I don't think that is something that's unique to Achilles injuries, the whole mental aspect of things. I think when you see guys that are professional athletes, that they have relied upon their body to be the best of the best for their entire lives, and something goes wrong, whether it is an Achilles in the case of Tatum and Halliburton and Damian Lillard, or a torn ACL as we've seen in the past, or even a broken bone, I do think that there is a mental hurdle that guys need to clear. Now, in terms of Tatum coming back, the one thing that I wonder about, because I do think the best case scenario for him and for the Celtics actually has nothing to do with this upcoming season. Like if the Celtics squeeze into the playoffs at the bottom of the top 6, or maybe they're a playing team, like I think all those things are plausible given what the roster looks like right now. But ultimately, I think for them to be a championship contending team a year from now, Jayson Tatum getting his feet wet this year would, I think, go a long way, John, in terms of pushing them in that direction. Because whenever Jayson Tatum comes back, maybe it's February of this year, maybe he doesn't come back at all this year, and the next time he plays an NBA game will be 13 months from right now. Either one of those things could happen, but there's going to be an adjustment period when that happens. It could be this year, it could be next year, but he's not going to come back and just like, oh yeah, that's Jayson Tatum. He's going to have rust to knock off. And I think the best thing for the Celtics will be getting that rust knocked off this season.
I 100% agree. And you don't want him getting antsy over the summer and trying to overdo it and prove anything under circumstances that are not under the team's control. I think getting him back, go through that soreness, get through that, like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm hurting this much from playing basketball. Get all of that stuff out. And this way he can have a little bit of a more normal summer and start to go work on, like, he can see, right? You get a month and a half, 2 months of, oh man, my burst isn't quite there, or I feel totally normal, or I don't feel like myself. And if you don't feel like yourself, how do you adjust your game to not having a certain type of burst or a certain type of element to your game? If you figure that out before the season ends, then you can go to the summer and say, okay, now I've got 4 months to adjust and say, okay, I'm gonna incorporate A, B, C, D moves into my bag to help counteract that. If you know that ahead of time, now you go into next season ready to go. But even more than that, it's helpful to the rest of the Celtics because they're trying to be a little bit of the Pacers. They're trying to be that deep team and figure out who plays well off of Tatum and off of Brown. We're going to figure out a lot of who plays off of Brown this season. Well, if Tatum can come back in March and you have 4 or 5 weeks of, let's run some pick and rolls with Luka Garza. Let's throw him out there with some Josh Minott. Let's just throw him with these ancillary players that are off the scrap heap, so to speak. Well, if one of those guys clicks with Tatum, boom, now you know ahead of time that he clicks with Tatum. You keep him that summer, and you know that heading into next year. So that's super important to help the Celtics kind of try to return to being a contender.
I do think that would be the best thing that could happen for them, and maybe not being in contention this year could be a blessing in disguise as far as getting their team back in a championship contention 12 months from now. But could there be a championship one across the pond? Yeah, there might be a league in Europe in a couple of years. We're going to play real or fake with that, and maybe Ben Simmons still plays basketball. We'll talk about that next right here on Locked On NBA Game Night. But first, today's show brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here. Fortunately for most of us, unfortunately for some of us, if you're like me and you're a Browns fan. But FanDuel is making sure that every Sunday is exciting, even if you are a Browns fan like myself, because they've got a can't miss offer right now. New customers can bet just $5, and if your first bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. That first $5 bet could come on Sunday. Maybe you believe the Cleveland Browns can cover a 7.5-point spread against the Green Bay Packers at home Sunday at 1 o'clock. I don't believe that. Maybe you think that John's New England Patriots. I have no idea if John likes the Patriots or not, but he's from that area, so maybe he does. Maybe you think that they can pull the upset and beat the Pittsburgh Steelers at home, plus 110 on the money line. I hope they win. I'm pulling for the Patriots this week. Love nothing more than watching the Steelers lose. Actually, I like watching the Ravens lose more, but that's a different story for a different podcast. So if you're ready to play right now, FanDuel has your back. Download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com. That is FanDuel.com to get started. Again, FanDuel.com. And if you place your first $5 bet, if it hits, $300 in bonus bets are yours to use all across the app. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you again for making Locked On NBA Game Night your first watch or listen today and every day. And if you're watching the show on YouTube right now, do us a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for us, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest from us. And John, it's time for a game that I believe you and Jake play every single week. And that game is called Real or Fake, where I ask the questions and the answers are given. And real or fake, the first one I want to get to, John, is by 2027, the NBA will have a league in Europe. Now, this comes from a report earlier this week where Adam Silver said that a new European league could start in either 2027 or 2028. We'll see what happens. There's not been a timeline that's finalized. Real or fake here?
I'm skeptical, man. I'm going to say fake. Like, I don't know that they're going to be met with the friendliest of faces over there. There's a Euro League. There are other leagues that I don't know that the competition is going to be welcome. Obviously, the commissioner has information that makes him feel that way, but I also am familiar with the hard-headed, stubborn European folks. I am a Greek and have played basketball in Greece, and I understand a little bit of just they are very set in their ways over there. So I don't know that this is going to go as smoothly as Adam Silver says. So count me in as fake.
I'm with you on fake. I think it's eventually it will happen. I don't know. I don't think eventually is within the next 3 years. I think that this is something that we probably see in the 2030s. I'm just skeptical about it happening so soon. And
yeah,
this pops up and it seems as if the expansion talk goes away, which I don't necessarily love that going away. Like, I think it would be so much easier, John, for the NBA to look at Seattle and say, you guys are dying to get the Sonics back. Well, here are the Sonics again. You know who's going to meet? Like, who's going to object to that? Nobody. Everybody would love that. How many people are going to object to a team being put in Las Vegas or a team being put in another city and expanding the current NBA from 30 to 32 teams? I just think that is much easier headway to make. I know that talk of that has maybe fizzled a little bit from what it seemed to be. Like, it seemed 12 months ago, like it was inevitable that the Seattle Supersonics would be back by 2028 or 2029. I don't know if that's the case now, but that's the direction I would personally rather see the NBA go.
I agree. I don't see why the NBA is trying to extend itself. Well, I do see why, because they think there's money to be made over there. And if the NBA's European League can serve as almost like a second G League, then you've got my interest a little bit more. If it's just another way to make money and they're trying to poach the Euro League guys, then I don't know. But if you can find a way for draft and stash players, the Cavs or the Celtics draft a guy, stash him over there. They can stash him in the NBA league and get him under like some more team control, NBA control, and actually develop him in a more personal way. Then I think there's a little bit more to it, but I don't know if that's what it's going to be.
I also, last thing on this before we move on to our other real or fake, I wonder what salaries would be, because you bring up the like second G League version type thing that it could be. And I think that's a great idea if you're going to do this, because I don't think you're getting top stars in their prime to leave the NBA to go play in Europe. I don't think that's going to happen. But what are you going to pay guys that are over there? Because G League salaries right now are not crazy. Like, it's not a lot of money. So if you're paying guys over there, the G League domestically, I think would then collapse. Like, that would be, or the talent would really shrink and you would just not be in a good place.
If there's a connection to teams here in the NBA, first of all, you have to pay what is competitive to that market. So it's not like we can say, well, the WNBA is a league that the NBA kind of created, so you would kind of be salaries closer to that. You have to pay something more kind of in the line of the Euro League salaries. So some guys making hundreds of thousands, some guys making multiple millions. The top stars, that's going to have to be it. Otherwise, it just becomes a league below Euro League, and I don't think the NBA wants to do that. I think they want to go out there and compete to be the number one league. But yeah, if the Celtics have a team in, Barcelona and like they are in some level of control there, then I think that would encourage some guys to say, you know, I don't need to be in the G League traveling commercially. Let's go play in that league where it's 2 games a week and you're playing a little bit more of a European schedule and you get to live and make a little bit more money. Well, you live in an awesome place. So I don't know. I think the logistics are going to be interesting. So I'll believe it when I see it.
Are you trying to say that Portland may not an awesome place where the current G League affiliate of the Celtics is, John? Is that what I'm getting at here? That the Maine Celtics are not in an awesome place?
I like Portland, Maine. I think the people in Portland are nice. Go up there for some nice lobster. They've got some of the freshest seafood around. But saying that it's not Barcelona, I don't think I'm out of pocket on that one.
I don't think that's too far off. And our second real or fake, Ben Simmons in the news. Real or fake, John? Ben Simmons is not retired. He said somebody asked him on his Instagram, "Are you retired?" He says no. However, Ben Simmons is currently a free agent, has not agreed to a contract with any team, and I believe is trying to avoid taking a minimum deal anywhere.
Yeah, I'm going to say that's also fake because he is retired. Not by choice, but who in the NBA is going to pay him to play basketball? Now, maybe he's not retired if he decides to go over to Europe. Maybe he wants to go back to Australia and, play some ball over there. You could probably do pretty well and make plenty of money, and you don't have to do some of the things you have to do in the NBA. That's fine. But as far as the NBA goes, who is paying Ben Simmons money to play basketball? Bro, you are retired from the NBA. Like it or not.
I'm with you. And I don't know Ben Simmons. I've never talked to Ben Simmons. I've never met Ben Simmons. But from the outside, he does not come across to me as somebody who loves basketball, right? Like this does not seem like it is truly his life's passion. No. So you bring up maybe he goes and plays in Europe, or maybe he goes and plays in Australia. Like I don't see that in the cards for him. I think if he's not playing in the NBA this year, and right now it looks like he's not, I don't think he's playing basketball elsewhere. Like I think he is. And financially, he's made a lot of money in his career. He signed a very big contract with the 76ers when he did. I lean towards retired here. Again, not by choice, but by truth.
It's a shame because I cover a team. I cover a team with like Peyton Pritchard on it, and he's 6'1" and plays with all the energy and desire and a little bit of desperation in the world. I'm like, it's a shame that a guy with Ben Simmons' build and abilities doesn't have that passion. And hey, like some people just don't. That's fine. But he doesn't. And he was still a pretty damn good NBA player at his peak. I wish some of these younger guys that are hungry for more had that physical ability that he did, and that it didn't go to waste in a lot of ways. But yeah, man, look, he's got his money. He's done what he's done. And look, you can live a nice, comfortable life and do nothing for the rest of it. Do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want, except play basketball in the NBA.
It seems that might be the path that he's going down. But thank you for making today's edition of Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen. Thank you for making the show your first listen each and every day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. And if you're watching on YouTube as John and I get out of here, do us a favor. Hit the thumbs up button for us. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest from Locked On NBA. We will be back tomorrow talking more about everything happening in the NBA.